Good day, and welcome again to Learning Pharmacology with me, Nurse Myron. For today's learning activity, we will be discussing antivirals. For our full disclosure, I am not affiliated with any of the manufacturers of the drugs or other items mentioned in this lecture. The mention of such brand names are only in passing and for educational purposes only, and are not for commercial promotion. I have no actual or potential conflict of interest in relation to this presentation. So let's begin our exploration with a review of viruses. Viruses consist of a single DNA or RNA molecule enclosed by a protein coat. In essence, viruses are nucleic acids that are wrapped in some sort of membrane. Technically, they are not living organisms, but in a way, they are not non-living organisms either. Viruses require entry into the host cell to carry out metabolic processes and replication for survival. That is why they are known as obligate intracellular parasites. Once viruses enter the host cell, they inject the genetic material and hijacks the host cell to produce viral components necessary for survival. Because viruses reside in host cells, developing medicines against them is very challenging. We need to eradicate the virus, but to maintain, or at least in a way, to protect the host cell. To further understand this, we should review what we call the viral life cycle. So first, let us discuss your anti-influenza antivirals. By the name itself, these drugs work against influenza virus. Recalling our microbiology and parasitology, influenza viruses are single-stranded RNA within a viral envelope. This envelope is usually made of a lipid bilayer composed of hemagglutinin, neuraminidase, and matrix 2. When this layer comes in contact with the host cell, the hemagglutinin binds to the host cell surface, which triggers the process of endocytosis, or the host cell engulfing the influenza virus. Now, the matrix 2 component in this lipid bilayer triggers the release of the viral RNA into the cell nucleus to begin the process of transcription and translation process. Because of the many different influenza viruses, we need to produce many different anti-influenza antiviral drugs. These drugs work by either inhibiting matrix 2, such as your amantadine or your rimantadine, or you have your endonuclease inhibitors, which inhibits viral RNA synthesis, such as your baloxavir. Lastly, we have your neuraminidase inhibitors. By the name itself, these chemicals inhibit neuraminidase, which disables the viral binding to the host cell. This last group is made of the popular antivirals oseltamivir under the brand name Tamiflu, usually given per orem, peramivir under the brand name Rapiacta and Rapivab, given intravenously, and your zanamivir under the brand name Relenza. Now we move on to the antiretroviral drugs, or sometimes referred to as your anti-HIV drugs. The human immunodeficiency virus is the causative agent of HIV infections. When HIV infections progress in the later stage, it now becomes your acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or better known as AIDS. HIV/AIDS is primarily transmitted through sexual transmission, also through the exchange of bodily fluids, especially blood, semen, and vaginal fluid, which usually happens during sexual contact. However, non-sexual transmission is also possible when a person living with HIV mother passes the HIV virus to the child. This can happen during pregnancy, during childbirth, or even through breast milk. We can see here in this graphical representation the common transmission methods of HIV/AIDS. So again, by blood, by use of non-sterile syringes and needles, or direct blood transfusions, or even organ transplant. 10% of HIV/AIDS transmission is from the mother to the child, either during pregnancy, childbirth, or even breastfeeding. However, the largest portion of HIV/AIDS transmission is through unprotected sex. We should also recall that HIV/AIDS cannot, repeat, cannot be transmitted via food, drink, and use of utensils. It is also not transmitted by insect bites, by simple kissing or touching, unless there are open wounds and there is bodily fluid exchange during the kissing or touching. And it is also not transmitted via clothes or towels or even fomites and use of toilets and showers. So how do HIVs infect humans? Human immunodeficiency viruses target CD4 positive T lymphocytes. These viruses bind to CD4 plus receptors of a human lymphocyte, which it later invades. Reverse transcriptase converts the RNA into DNA, and another enzyme, your integrase, transports and inserts the newly synthesized DNA into the host cell nucleus, which triggers the replication of the virus. To combat HIV, physicians usually prescribe a cocktail of anti-HIV medications. Usually, these different regimens aim to control the further spread of the virus inside the infected person's body. These drugs can include your entry inhibitors, such as your enfuvirtide, maraviroc, and ibalizumab. These drugs prevent viral entry into the host cell. One of the most commonly prescribed anti-HIV drugs are your reverse transcriptase inhibitors. From the name itself, these drugs prevent the conversion of HIV RNA into DNA by inhibiting the enzyme reverse transcriptase. This is an important step in the replication of the HIV virus. Under your reverse transcriptase inhibitors, you have your nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors or NRTIs, which competitively inhibit reverse transcription. These include your abacavir, emtricitabine, lamivudine, tenofovir, and zidovudine. Non-nucleoside RTIs or NNRTIs bind and destroy the reverse transcriptase enzyme. These include your doravirine, efavirenz, etravirine, nevarapine, and rilpivirine. So this is a graphical representation of how entry inhibitors work against HIVs by the name itself, preventing the entry of the HIV into the cell. Likewise, we can see here that reverse transcriptase inhibitors stop the process of DNA transcription by inhibiting the enzyme reverse transcriptase. Other anti-HIV medications include your integrase inhibitors, such as your dolutegravir and raltegravir. These drugs block the HIV's genetic material from being integrated into the DNA of the host cell, thereby preventing the transcription and the replication of the DNA. Also, you have your protease inhibitors. These include your atazanavir, darunavir, fosamprenavir, ritonavir, saquinavir, and tipranavir. These drugs block the HIV's protease enzyme, which prevents the assembly of new viral particles. Therefore, no new HIV viruses are released into other host cells. So you can see here, again, using our graphical representation of the quote-unquote life cycle of the virus, where the protease inhibitors act and the integrase inhibitors, similar to the other drug we discussed earlier, and how they function. So what are now the roles of the nurse in giving anti-HIV therapy to patients or persons living with HIV? As always, assessment is important, and we do this by monitoring the liver and kidney function of the patient. We should monitor for any changes in the urine pattern, especially the urine output of the patient. Likewise, we should observe for any problems with the liver by monitoring for the occurrence of jaundice. We should also monitor for the laboratory values such as your SGPT, SGOT, and creatinine levels of the patient. Patient education is also important. We should give them health teachings about strict adherence to anti-HIV therapy. Nurses should also watch for the possible side effects of anti-HIV drugs. And because HIV is not a simple disease, we should provide support, especially emotional, psychological, and even spiritual support for these patients. We are not only managing the physical and the medical complexities of HIV, but also we should treat the patient from a holistic point of view. The most important special nursing action in anti-HIV therapy is to monitor the CD4 T-cell counts and the viral load, because when we monitor this, we can evaluate if the treatment is indeed working. Moving on to our next category, we have our anti-hepatitis drugs. Recall from our microbiology and parasitology class, the hepatitis B virus is also known as your HBV. These viruses attack our liver cells, also known as our hepatocytes. HBV attaches to receptors sodium taurocolate co-transporting polypeptide enzyme, which triggers the viral DNA release. Later, this DNA is converted into viral RNA to create new hepatitis B viruses. And once they replicate, these Hep B viruses infect other hepatocytes. Drugs that are effective against hepatitis B viruses include your entecavir, lamivudine, adefovir, telbivudine, and your tenofovir. So these drugs work by inhibiting the viral DNA incorporation into the hepatocyte, which prevents transcription and synthesis. Related to the Hep B virus is your hepatitis C virus, or HCV. Unlike its cousin, HCV enters the host hepatocyte cells through the process of endocytosis. HCV contains a single-stranded RNA which invades the endoplasmic reticulum of the hepatocyte. Through the enzymes proteases, viral replication is triggered. And when there are numerous new hepatitis C viruses, nearby hepatocytes are also invaded and infected. The drug of choice given to combat hepatitis C viruses are your protease inhibitors. These include your glecaprevir, pibrentasvir, ledipasvir, sofosbuvir, and velpatasvir. Usually, commercially available anti-hepatitis C drugs are given in combinations. This is done to better target the hepatitis C virus. So what are the roles of the nurse during anti-hepatitis virus treatment? First, we should continuously assess the patient, especially focusing on the liver. By monitoring the liver function tests like SGPT and SGOT, we can determine if the treatment is working or not. As nurses, we should also educate our patients regarding the potential for long-term therapy against hepatitis viruses. We should also give them health teachings about the importance of adherence to the different regimens. Continuous monitoring for side effects is also important. Some of the side effects include fatigue, headache, and GI symptoms. Nurses should also be alert for any signs of viral resistance. If any are noticed in the patient, we should immediately report them to the physician. We now move on to the anti-herpes drugs. Herpes, the disease, is caused by your herpes simplex virus or HSV. We have the two subcategories, your HSV1 and HSV2. Herpes is usually manifested through painful sores and blisters in the skin. Anti-herpes drugs work by inhibiting viral replication within the infected cells. These drugs target viral DNA synthesis. Common anti-herpes drugs include your acyclovir, valacyclovir, and famciclovir. Antiviral therapy against herpes is usually used during active outbreaks to shorten healing time and to lessen the symptoms. As nurses, we should monitor for the renal function of the patient, especially when giving the drug acyclovir, because this drug is nephrotoxic. Patient education is also important. We should fully disclose to them the full course of the therapy and that they should complete the regimen even if the symptoms eventually improve early on. Because herpes affects the skin, nurses should encourage good hygiene and wound care of the lesions to reduce transmission risks. Sometimes suppressive therapy is given together with the antiviral drug. This requires ongoing monitoring for efficacy and any possible side effects. And lastly, as we always do, we monitor for any allergic reactions and adverse effects of the drug. And that concludes our discussion on the different antiviral drugs that are commonly available in the market. I hope that you learned a lot today, and thank you for listening.